Hello, Kings fans, and welcome to Kings Talk, presented by Cap City Crown. It's been an interesting week for the Sacramento Kings. They beat the Knicks on national television, got their 40th win on Saturday against the Phoenix Suns. Sabonis won his second Player of the Week award this season, and then on Monday night, the Kings played the best team in the NBA in the Bucks, hung with them until the very end. The Bucks got the experience over the Kings, and a little fight broke out towards the end. John, how was your week? How you doing?
Well, my week is pretty good compared to the...
Pretty?
It's pretty good. I didn't get in an on-court altercation. I'm not potentially facing any fines. But that also means I'm not on the cusp of the most exciting basketball of the year, or at least partaking in it. I just have to sit on the sidelines and watch. So when you ask how my week is, it's pretty good. Yeah, that pretty is kind of the key word there.
Well, good. It's not pretty great, just pretty good.
Pretty good. Let's say pretty good. You don't want to get too high or too low, you know?
What's better is what if you were to ask me if how was my week and I said pretty good or great, what would you think would be the better week?
Well, pretty great. And pretty great does kind of connote.
No, I said pretty good.
Oh, and then great.
If I said pretty good or great, what's higher?
I thought you were saying pretty good or pretty great, and I'm like, oh, that's easy.
Oh no, just pretty good or great. What's ranked higher?
I mean, great. I don't know why is that. Okay, why is that a question? Seems kind of self-explanatory, Tony.
Okay, fine. Anyways,
this all could have been avoided if Giannis didn't just, dribble a ball up.
Yeah. Only if the Kings just won.
Yeah, no, that's really the issue.
Yeah, that was
a great game, and then it just kind of there was two glaring mistakes as the Kings got it within 4. I guess you could even kind of go a little bit before that when Grayson Allen hit that response, I think, to Kevin Huerter.
Oh man, yeah,
and that and the Middleton 3 both came off of. Well, the first one came off of just a pretty good offensive play because you had them, I think, because they were doing the Middleton Drew Holiday pick and roll in the second half a lot. And I think Drew Holiday came up, did like a ghost screen type action, and then made a hard cut towards the basket. And Kevin Huerter was on Allen, but had to crash in to get that hard cut that Drew Holiday made. Fox was following him. Grayson Allen's wide open. It was a beautiful play. When you replay it, you're like, damn, that's well executed. And then the second one, it was just a complete miscommunication between Harrison Barnes and Fox. That is on the Middleton one that was really kind of like,
that was awful. And of course he just
drained it. And like Mike Brown said, it's just like, I mean, it was kind of a tale of two halves for the Kings because they came out in the first half and were really active, did a good job of taking shots and standing in there strong, as Brown noted, against Giannis, and not letting other guys get comfortable. Because Giannis is arguably the most unguardable player in the NBA, especially when he's getting downhill. I mean, absolutely unguardable, easily the most unguardable.
Yeah.
And so, as Mike Brown and any coach would tell you, it's like you try to limit that as much as you can. You just try not to let anybody else go off, and that's obviously super hard because the Bucks are really good. They have their top 3 players are really good. Even Middleton, when he's not at his best per se, is a phenomenal player. And so they did a good job of doing kind of that, balancing that act. I mean, Giannis was still getting his points in his first game back and all, but the Kings played really well. They come out in the second half, and they kind of drop both those things. As Mike Brown said, they let Middleton get too comfortable. They stopped standing in there and taking those shots and sacrificing their body against Giannis. And that compiled with, because they were in it, and the Kings can always kind of stay in it with their offense and whatnot. But just the mistakes of that miscommunication between Barnes and Fox on defense, and then the turnover, which was, you want to like Fox lost the ball, but he lost his balance, and Drew Holiday was just playing good ball pressure. And that happens, and that kind of was that was it.
That was kind of the game.
And it really seeing that happen, it was like, oh yeah, that's a team that won the championship 2 years ago. That's a team that's been that its group, its core has been doing this for a while and at the highest level. And it's not like a wake up call because everybody's talking about playoff experience in terms of the Kings amid all the championship kind of musings, which are both fair. Because honestly, who knows what's going to happen in the playoffs? I mean, this season's been weird. Who knows what can happen? But man, that was a glaring example of that experience factor, and it kind of reminded everybody of that, right?
Yeah, 100%. And like you said, it was a tale of two halves. The Kings looked really good in that first half, but I mean, you knew that game was going to get close, and exactly what you said again. The Bucks showed their experience, and they came out on top. And they kind of ran away with it towards the end. The Kings didn't really have a chance to tie it up or anything within the last minute or anything. It was over by then. Then you had Robin Lopez kind of chirping all
Brook.
game, and yeah, sorry. I said chirping, so I was thinking Robin. Brook Lopez was chirping all game, and Trey Lyles was he was fed up with him. He was fed up with the loss in a close game that the Kings could have had if a couple plays went their way. But yeah, I liked it out of Trey. How did you feel about that altercation at the end?
Well, let's go through it because it's an interesting thing. So Giannis is dribbling the ball up, and the best way to put it is he and Lyles crossed paths. Now, generally, what the Kings would have expected and what they would have wanted him to do, and maybe you can make the argument that maybe this is what he should have done, is just dribble it straight up and then dribble it out. No need to get in front of anybody. Now, I guess I couldn't help. I love when shit just hits the fan and everybody starts arguing over stuff. I mean, agent of chaos. And so I like going online and just kind of reading how all the fan bases stick to their side and just bicker at one another. But something that Bucks fans noted is that in situations like that, Giannis will sometimes dribble towards his bench and then I think like down the ball or something like that. And so they were pointing out that it seemed like he was just doing that. So that was just, like I said, they crossed paths. I get where both are coming from. I mean, Lyles took the swipe out the ball and he felt like he got his arm clamped down by Giannis. There's whatever happened there. He never said anything was personal with Giannis. And honestly, you can kind of pass that off as just like, okay, honestly, Lyles probably shouldn't have done that. And then when it gets interesting is like, because the thing that Lyles added there is a little shove at the end, which now I think Lopez would have gone up to him no matter what. But that little shove, all of a sudden, from an outside perspective, whether you want to agree with it or not, that now gives somewhat justification for him stepping in. And like I said in the game recap, and like you noted just a second ago, Brook Lopez was just, he was bickering at everything. And it was an intense game and everything like that. But it's just like, there's an energy to Brook Lopez that's just like,
it's like one of those guys you just like you look at him and you're like, I just don't like this.
Well, I don't know about that. But
he gives me that energy. Just like I just don't like looking at this guy. And maybe it's not his looks. Maybe it's just not his looks, but just like he just like frustrates me just watching him on the court. It's kind of pesky. He's always chirping and stuff like that. I'm just like, I just do not like this guy.
Right.
And so, I mean, if I'm feeling that way watching it, I can only imagine how the guys down low feel playing.
And you got to think about like how much Lyles was playing in that fourth quarter. I think he played practically the whole fourth quarter. He's battling on the boards. It was a physical game all game.
Yeah.
Like if Lopez was really smart, like Lopez obviously rationalized it. It's like, I'm going to stand up for my guy. But it's just like at a certain point, you have to draw the line. And again, now it comes where Lyles shoved him in the face. Open fist, no punch or anything, but shoved his face away. Which again, it's like, I kind of get where Lyles is coming from. That's the last thing you want to see is Lopez in your face, but maybe don't do that. And then like they started jostling at that point, getting all tied up, and it got broken up. And Lyles went to the locker room, which kind of gave me a sense that like he kind of felt like he shouldn't have done that last thing. But him and Fox made it pretty clear after the game that they were sticking to the whole idea that, well, if Giannis never would have dribbled in front of him, that would have never happened, which I kind of think is honestly, from an outside perspective, that's kind of a sorry excuse. I get where they're coming from, though, and I get that they're backing each other up and everything like that. I mean, like, especially between Fox and Lyles, recall that Lyles, I don't know who did it first. It was either him or Metu, but he was pretty quick to go to social media when Fox was lost out to Jaren Jackson in the All-Star game. So like, and it's like all that could have been avoided just from like so many different angles. But I guess the takeaway here is it's just like you can't push the guy's face away at that point. And
okay, so as a fan, I'm very happy with what Trey Lyles did. Like, screw Brook Lopez. Like, good. And the Kings, they shouldn't be like trying to defend Trey Lyles because Giannis shouldn't have been dribbling the ball up. Just say it for how it is. Fucking Brook Lopez deserves a shove to the face after he's chirping all night. Yeah, just Brook Lopez is just being a little bitch all night. And so I think he deserves a shove just for that as a Kings fan, right? I guess like from the coaching perspective and in this crucial stretch of games going down the stretch, of course you don't want Trey Lyles to get suspended. He did hit him in the face. We haven't heard anything yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if Lyles is suspended a game in games you need to win, right? So he's an important player on this team, obviously. So it's like there's two sides of it for me. Like there's one I'm like, yeah, like show some emotion. Like this team's here to win, and like they're frustrated and stuff. And like I get it. Like I think it's just different. Like I feel like if this happened like 2 years ago when the Kings were like 30-50 at this point, it's like why like what you're just mad because you suck. But it's like they're in the fight this year. They're in the hunt. It's like he's mad. He's just like, just get out of my face, dude. Like I just feel like they're showing emotion. And like I said, it's all about the record this year. So it just comes off a lot better that Trey Lyles is showing this emotion because he wants to win. He's pissed. And he's not going to put up with anyone's shit. So as a fan, I like seeing that. As people have been saying, he got that dog in him, right? And I feel like the Kings need some dogs on their team. Because, I don't know. Sometimes I don't see it from Fox and Sabonis. So it's nice having that one guy who's going to stick up for you regardless. And I think that's Trey Lyles.
yeah. And again, just to like make it clear, I kind of just see where both sides are coming from. And I kind of see also where it's like, you crossed the line. Like Lopez should have been the bigger man, and then Lyles. Like it's easy to say he probably shouldn't have pushed. He definitely shouldn't have pushed Lopez's face away. But like I like what Mike Brown said about it. He didn't really like comment or like condone or ridicule what Lyles did. He just said like when things are that intense, the tiniest thing can set someone off. It's all for the love of the game. Like what are you gonna do? I think there's an element to it that you're talking about where it's just like, I mean. Jason Anderson kind of got it out of him by asking it a certain way, but Mike Brown had a very quotable moment by saying, like, we ain't going to take shit from nobody. And I think that there's that greater element at play because you've seen it a lot, especially over the last month. I mean, like, think about the press conference with Fox and Monk after the second highest scoring game against the Clippers. You know, someone asked about like, oh, how do you feel about them having what? And no disrespect to anybody. It's just like, well, what about us? Like we don't give a shit. We don't give a shit what's going on over there. We care about what's going on over here. And I think that whole like demanding respect thing, I get it. I mean, like in a lot of ways, like I said, I get it. I get what happened, and shit like that happens all the time in the highest intensity. But there's my greater point is that come playoff time, there's a fine line between being intense and standing up for your guys or whatever, standing up for yourself, I guess, and then hurting your team. And the one thing that I thought of today, the day after the game was, and I'm not saying Trey Lyles is of the same importance to the Kings as Draymond Green is to the Warriors. But remember when the Warriors blew a 3-1 lead to the Cleveland Cavaliers?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not using this as an excuse for why the Warriors lost, but it definitely was a contributor. When LeBron James stepped over Draymond Green and Draymond responded, he stood up for himself and he got suspended for a game. And, you know, in a lot of ways, it's like, man, everybody, if you were not a Cavs fan or just a LeBron stan, like everybody could kind of see where Draymond was coming from. But at the end of the day, on the biggest stage, you can't put them in the position to kick you out. You can't put them in the position to quote unquote extend the series and make more money. You just can't put them in that position to get you kicked out. And Lyles may not be of the same importance to the Kings as Draymond Green is to the Warriors, but Trey Lyles is pretty damn important to the Kings. And you can see that in the fact that he's playing the fourth quarter last night. You can see that in the fact that when Domas gets into foul trouble late in the game, they go with the small five with Lyles over Metu. You see it in the fact that Lyles has arguably been the most consistent impact off the bench this season. Monk pushes the highest ceiling. Davion Mitchell really brings that consistency on the defensive end. But on both ends of the floor all season, Lyles has been pretty steady line, and it's been a pretty high line at that.
I hear you. And my reaction would be different if it was the playoffs or if he was going to get suspended in like a big stretch. And I'm not saying this isn't a big stretch, but the Kings have been playing great basketball. They're going on a road trip. They play the Bulls. They play the Nets, who are, not like easy win teams, but teams I think the Kings can beat in case Lyles does get suspended, right? And they're sitting not comfortably, but they're sitting decently at the third seed now.
They were 3 games ahead of Phoenix.
Yeah. So it's still close and stuff, but if this was the playoffs or the Kings needed to win these next games, like I'd be a little more upset, right? So I think he chose a good time to do it, if any.
Yeah.
But circumstances definitely change it. Like if you did this in the playoffs and it was like Game 7 was tomorrow, I don't know if they suspend him, but like if he had a chance to get suspended during the postseason run or a really important stretch of games or game, like, well, I'd be mad. Like, dude, like you got to hold your emotions together.
You're right. He picked a good time to do it. He probably learned a lesson. Now, will he do that? No, when the stakes are way higher, there's a good chance he won't. I don't know if it's Brook Lopez again if they meet in the finals.
The finals preview
Just
Monday.
Slug
night.
it out. Try to get Brook Lopez suspended.
Yeah, I know. Do you remember? That'd be funny. What if it was like the NBA finals and it was like the Kings versus? It doesn't really matter if the Kings are in it, but like the Kings versus Bucks, and they like suspended Brook Lopez and Robin Lopez just like shaved his head to look like Brook and played.
Dude.
Do you remember that conspiracy theory? Maybe like 5 years ago now. Last time the Wizards were good, and I believe it was Markieff Morris that was on the Wizards, and he like sprained his ankle. It's like a high ankle sprain, and it's like one of those injuries. Like you're usually out for like a week after that. At least like you're missing a game, and you like suited up the next game. There's like a big conspiracy theory that Marcus Morris like just filled in for him because they're identical twins and they have like identical tattoos, and so it's like almost impossible to tell them apart.
Yeah.
Robin Lopez. I don't know if I think they have more of a similar game, Markieff and Marcus, where I don't know if Robin's the 3-point shooter that Brook is.
No, I was going to be like, yeah, Robin. 0 for 12.
1 for 12. Yeah. Like everybody's going to be the 12.
You were generous with the 1.
Yeah. I think he can hit the 3 decently.
Yeah.
But I don't think at the clip that Brook
Robin
does.
Lopez. Yeah, I mean, I don't really trust with the whole Morris twins. I don't really trust twins as it is, but it's always been an interesting factor. I'm like, I don't know. I wonder if there's a sinister side to the fact that they're physically identical in all facets with the ink and everything. I don't know. That's always weird. Twins are kind of weird to me anyways, because they're not weird and like I avoid them, but it's just like, you guys like think the same. You always hear those things about like sometimes twins can like communicate telepathically, like I think in like the wound or something. I might be making that up.
My wife is the daughter of a twin, and I think it like skips a generation. So I'm afraid that I'm gonna have like twins.
Oh man!
But if I was to say I had a really good week or a great week, what would be better?
Did you just ask the question again, or did you use different phrases there?
No, I said pretty good the first time. But if you're like, how was your week, Tony? I said this. Really good. And you said, Tony, how was your week? And I said, it was great.
Really good sounds like you went to like a nude beach or something.
Okay.
Or something along those lines. You can escalate from there with your imaginations at home. But yeah, I don't know. It was like the way you said it is like, it's really good.
It was really good.
I'm like, oh.
But then I'm like this. It was great.
It was great.
It was great. I don't know.
Me and my wife went to Lowe's. And then we went to,
I thought you were gonna, for some reason I heard the "la" and I thought you were gonna say Legoland.
No.
Well, it sounds better than Lowe's.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I've only been to Lowe's once, and that's because Home Depot didn't have what I needed.
Interesting.
Yeah. All
All
We're
right,
getting off topic.
Kings. What else is happening? What else is new? I mentioned something earlier. Domantas Sabonis with his second Player of the Week award for last week's performance. I was kind of surprised by this, just because I didn't think Sabonis had his craziest week ever. Yeah, the Kings went 3-0 during the week. He almost averaged a triple double with 20, I think 10.7 and like 8.3. So I can see why he deserved it or won it, I guess. But it kind of caught me by surprise, honestly. But he's been, I don't know. He's just Domantas Sabonis. I guess those are just numbers I expect from him on a nightly basis. His game on Monday was like 23, 17, and 15. Yeah. It's crazy. It's incredible.
Yeah,
And he didn't even play that well against the Suns. He didn't even have a double-double, did he?
No, he did not.
No, yeah. No, he did not. He didn't have the best game. And the Kings still won because Fox didn't even have the best game either.
Yeah.
Anyways,
well, I guess they're just going off the fact that he had 2 out of his 3 games that week. He had 2 triple doubles. Or he had.
Dang, did he really?
He had a triple double against New Orleans, 19, 11, and 11. And then against New York, he had 24, 13, and 10.
Dang. He just does up these triple doubles so casually now. I don't even notice anymore. It's like a double for Fox, like 24 and 10. That's like Sabonis is like 19, 11, and 11.
Yeah, well, even double doubles for Sabonis. It's just it's more odd when he doesn't get one.
Oh, for sure. He leads the league in double doubles. Like the new Sacramento era record holder for double doubles in a season. Right. With how many games are left? 20 something.
15 now.
There are only 15 games left. That's
because they're like 40 and 27, aren't they?
That's insane. 15 games left. That's 15 games until the Kings break. I was gonna say break the playoff drought. It's becoming more surreal as we get closer. Right. The last game's on April 7th, 9th, something like that.
Yeah, one of those. I don't know that one.
Yeah, one of those April early dates. Oh man, I cannot wait for the Golden One Center to get playoff basketball.
Yeah,
never seen it. It's never happened.
It's going to be crazy. What if it's just not the dimensions of the inside? There's just something missing. Like, when was the commentators just say that? It's a raucous crowd here. Not as big as I thought it was going to be, or not as loud. It just isn't. It doesn't feel. You were in Arco, right? You remember that? And he's like, I was there. Yeah, that would be really a letdown. But I doubt it would be.
It was just disappointing. Of course it's not going to happen. The place is going to go crazy. But it would be funny if that was to happen. Like, no one showed up.
Just pull the Seattle move. Just pump sound into that thing.
Yeah, right.
It's Sacramento. They're the loudest fans ever. Everybody knows that. It's just like deafening. The players have to wear earplugs.
That'd be crazy. I didn't go to this game. But I remember when the Kings set the this was at Arco, I think. Yeah, it probably was Sleep Train. And they set the Guinness Book of World Records or the Guinness World Record of the loudest sound in an indoor place or something. I don't know. I doubt that still holds record.
But the thing with Sabonis is that he like you said, it's like you were kind of surprised that he won Player of the Week. This was just a great opportunity. The Player of the Week thing, the franchise record for double doubles in a season. It's just kind of an opportunity to bring him up again because he's just such a constantly productive in such a magnificent way that he kind of just goes under the radar sometimes, especially when you have the whole team's playing well out of the break. Fox had that stretch of 30 plus games, yada, yada, yada. And then, I don't know. It's just always nice to be able to really appreciate kind of the center of it all in terms of who's on the floor. Quite literally.
No play on words. Yeah.
So the fact that the Kings will be able to, or that Sacramento will be able to erupt for playoff basketball again, is maybe that factored into being Player of the Week. Because it wasn't around the same time everybody's like, well, now there's a 99% chance. I don't know who's formulating this.
I don't either.
It's just odds or whatever, math, just whatever.
99% chance to make the playoffs and 0.4% to win the finals, I think. Or reach it, one of the two.
Yeah, I don't know how they're calculating that.
I don't either.
I get the playoff thing because it's so many games left. You can factor in the magic number, all that stuff. I could see how there's a path to that. But yeah, 0.4. I don't know. I just thought of it.
It just makes sense. But okay, I'm gonna before we go back to Sabonis, the Kings do not hold this record anymore. It was Guinness World Record for loudest crowd roar, and they set it at 126 decibels against the Pistons in 2013 at Sleep Train Arena. The previous record was set by the Bucks at 106 decibels. Damn.
The Bucks.
The Kings destroyed it by 20 decibels, and I couldn't tell you what that means. But now it's owned by the Kansas City, or not the Kansas City, the University of Kansas.
What?
Jayhawks own it now at 130
in a college stadium.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Those kids, you know. Yeah, the Jayhawks with less fans too. 1,000 less fans, and
that's
broke
crazy.
It. We need to get Guinness back here to the G1 so the Kings can break it. Anyways, Domas. What do you say Mark Jones calls him?
Oh, Mark Jones says he'll go Dame Mas. Give me more. Dominant Domas. Dame Mas.
Good old Mark Jones. I always like watching like Mark stand next to Katie pregame, and he's like she towers over him.
He looks so tiny.
I know.
It's like that little filming trick that they did for the Lord of the Rings. They do it like a weird angle, and then it makes like the person that's smaller look even smaller.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
That's funny.
But moving on here, because we're talking about the fact that the Kings are here. I mean, the 40 win mark. I guess we shouldn't really skip over that. Kind of a big deal. And this last July, we spoke to two of the three individuals that were outside the Chase Center this summer for the famous "We're Getting 40 Wins This Year" viral video. And Sean, one of those guys, made an interesting point on the podcast, because we were just like, did that come off the top of your head? I don't remember exactly how we asked it. But he had like such a calculated answer, totally backed up by the fact that they hadn't won 40 games. He mentioned the last year under Jaeger as being so close, and how that was just like, it felt like it set it almost kind of amplified that benchmark, because it was that Jaeger season was the one time in recent memory where the fan base was close to feeling, it was the closest they felt to what they're feeling now, I guess is one way to put it. And you could see it when they got the 40th win. It was a huge deal. It was big, all the journalists asking every player and coach about it. It's a huge deal. Do you have any comment on it? I think you do, on the 40th win, how big it is. I mean, it seems so benign, but it's packed with a lot of meaning for a lot of people.
I mean, yeah, as someone who's been watching this team for at least the last 20 years, and considering we haven't had a 40-win season since the last time we made the playoffs 16 seasons ago, it's just awesome, really. And it's like, the 40 is nice because it's like, I don't know. I guess it would feel a little different if we like barely got 40. It's like, oh my God, we got 40. But it's like, it's still a little different as in the sense it's like, well, like, why not 50 at this point, right? So, I mean, just like this, like the symbolism of the 40, and like, it's like, it just shows like this is a new team. This isn't the same Kings as the last 16 years. Like, we're on a new path. Like, in the 40 win benchmark just shows that right away. So, it kind of just shows that we're just not failures anymore. And that's just awesome. It's just something we haven't seen in forever. And it's just a measure that, or it's something that measures success, right? Wins. And you finally get to 40 after not having it forever. It just feels good. And it really shows the direction this franchise was headed in.
Mm-hmm. And I think you kind of hit on it there for a second. But the whole idea, it's like, well, why not 50? Well, it's like this whole team, you ask Mike Brown, it's like, I don't know, 40 wins? Like, I didn't come here to win 40 games. Like, I came here to do a lot more than that. And Harrison Barnes kind of said the same thing you just said. He was like, I mean, I always remember the Spurs in their best years. Like, they were always getting 50 wins. Like, 50 is kind of the marker that really matters. So it's like, the 40 wins is like definitely nice for the fan base, but the team doesn't give a shit. And I feel like that's great, because that's how it should be. And they're never settling. And I think that's just kind of part of the environment that Mike Brown has built in that locker room, and that Monty McNair has allowed him to build. So,
And I mean, Sean and Nadeem, they're awesome, but it's like, I mean, the 40 wouldn't be as big this year if it wasn't for that viral clip of them saying 40. And of course, 40 is amazing considering we haven't gotten 40 forever. But if they said the Kings are winning 50 this year, like the 50, we'd be waiting for the 50 benchmark even more than the 40 win. So I think that video really just amplified the 40 win mark. Because even if the Kings won 40 games this year on the dot, it's still a losing record, you know.
That's what everybody pointed out. Which is why,
which was funny, which made the video kind of funny, and people picked on it, right? But no, Sean gave a great answer. It's like, well, like 40 is a lot for a team that hasn't won 40 in 16 years. So It was a good video overall, and it really amplified the 40 win mark.
Well, it's also illustrative of the fact that it's like it was ridiculed and laughed at, but it's just like nobody expected this because nobody was paying attention. I mean, like, you hear all these people that were just like, you know, I was listening to something by Marc Stein's podcast, which we'll get to as another topic. But he was just mentioning how even when the trade went down last year with Halliburton and Sabonis, he's like, I thought that was the dumbest move ever. And it's just like, shows you what I know. And I just feel like that whole video of that being laughed at, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, they're at 40 wins and then some. It's just like, man, they were kind of sleeping on the Kings. And it's really illustrative of that because it's so funny and humorous. And then it's just like, oh, shit, look at these guys, you know?
And it was funny because you had that. Like, everyone was ridiculing that. And then you had the beam. I remember when the beam got, like, posted on Instagram that it was going to be lit after each game. It's like, so what? Like, the Kings can win. They can light it 17 times this year. So, Kings just proven a lot of people wrong.
Yeah.
It's been a great year. And that's what that 40 symbolizes, honestly.
Yeah. And it's interesting because even they've totally surpassed the national perspective or the national expectations. But even like on a local level, it's like, did we think that they could win like 42, 43 games? It's like, yeah, but it's like, you're talking about like 50's not out of the question. Being at the top of the conference right now, it's like, wouldn't have really have expected that. And of course, there's a lot of factors involved, but there's just so many layers to how special of a season this is for this organization.
Anyways.
But I mean, I kind of alluded to it there. There was a moment not too long ago. There was a pretty considerable amount of time, where Sacramento was viewed as a place where people would want to go. And that's definitely not the case now. They are a really good, tight-knit group that anybody with the right type of locker room presence can fit in and gel with. They're talented. They have a head coach that's all about accountability. They got a great fan base, and they're winning games. I mean, there's what's not to love. But for a long time, that wasn't the case. And as I was kind of noting there, Marc Stein said on his podcast on Monday with Chris Haynes, because they dedicated most of the podcast to the Kings and how they're one of the best stories in the NBA. And it's kind of funny when they do like a national profile on the Kings and they just start saying all this stuff that's like, we've known that since November. They're like, yeah, they all signed a contract being all in. I'm like, dude, we knew about that in like freaking training camp. Like, what the hell the fuck have you been? Read Cap City Crown, bro.
Cap City Clowns.
That's right. But Marc Stein made a note. He said, he hadn't really reported on this yet, so he didn't want to name names, of course, just adding the intrigue. But he said that in the last 10 to 12 months, there was a moment, and it was a very like prominent player that would have made big news had the trade gone down. Their agent prevented them from going to Sacramento because a trade was about to happen, and the agent basically got in the way and stopped it because he didn't want his guy to go to Sacramento, which was the long-standing wisdom among players and agents and all that stuff. The whole basketball health thing. You could read a whole footnote about it. But it kind of got me thinking, I'm like, oh, who could that be? And I feel like the one person that came to mind immediately was, and this is speculation, John Collins.
I could see Collins.
Just because he was a name that was thrown around a lot. It seemed like it was really kind of...
I don't know. I just don't think McNair would trade for Collins. I just didn't ever see that, just because it didn't seem like a guy McNair would want in Sac for the culture.
Mm-hmm.
And Collins was talked about a lot, and I know we discussed it, but like when I really think about it, I'm like, McNair's not trading for Collins. Collins is kind of like an a-hole.
That's the immediate one that came to mind.
Not Kevin Durant.
I don't think
No,
Yeah, I'm like,
LeBron. I don't know.
yeah, I'm like,
Mitchell, Donovan Mitchell. What about
I
Donovan Mitchell?
thought about that. I was like, maybe was there anything between OG Anunoby or Pascal Siakam? Maybe Toronto. I don't know. Like at this point, it's like I don't fucking know. You don't.
I don't know either.
Who knows if Marc Stein fucking knows? He might never touch that again. He might have just.
It was Ben Simmons.
Oh my god! I don't think 10 to 12 months. That I don't think they were looking at him at that point. And that's interesting because 10 to 12 months. That's another element that's interesting here because the Sabonis trade happened 13 months ago in
That's
February.
true.
So it would have been something that was in addition to that, and that kind of adds to the element that if you remember after they traded for Sabonis, they were also like right in the last closing moments of the trade deadline that year. They're like, hey man, they made this big move for Sabonis, but they might not be done. They might still be looking for a stretch 4.
Okay.
So I don't know. I mean,
Okay.
I have no idea, but
how could the agent step in and prevent a trade from happening?
I don't know the specifics about that. I'm not you can I'll give you Marc Stein's email, but
Well, does this guy have like a no trade clause? Maybe.
I don't know. I'm not gonna. It's a good question. I don't know.
What conference?
I don't think he said it.
What
No,
division?
he didn't say anything like that.
I'm just messing.
Oh, really? He's smart now. But
I want to know who this is.
yeah, I know. It's interesting.
Damn it, Mark. No, I'm not. I'm not subscribing to your Substack. The Stein line.
He He won't even preview a paragraph. You can't even read anything. It's all blocked. Like okay, but yeah, somebody definitely screwed up, and it last 10 to 12 months. I mean, man, it's just a complete turnaround. When Vivek takes a hands-off approach to the basketball operations, he actually looks like a good businessman.
Yeah, the Kings start winning. Wow, who'd have guessed?
One of the things that I thought was interesting on that podcast, because Chris Haynes mentioned that he was at because Vivek Ranadive has a brunch at the All-Star weekend every year since he's been an owner.
Like he hosts
Yeah, like
it?
Shaq goes there and all these former Kings and former players and people connected with him somehow. Or he'll just invite people like Chris Haynes, like a prominent
Interesting.
insight.
Mm-hmm.
And
I didn't know about this.
and this is kind of just my opinion on this. Is interesting. He was noting, he's like Chris Haynes was like, I love Vivek, you know? Vivek was looking at me at this brunch and he said, how did you get so big all of a sudden, Chris? And he was just having this great time. And I'm just like, man, Vivek really knows how to talk people's egos up.
Yeah, I was gonna
And I'm
say.
like, and it's just the way he was talking about it. I'm like, are you that dense? Like, do you not see what's going on there? But it's all about access. What are you gonna do? The world kind of sucks. Just
funny.
I just feel like it's interesting whenever people are like, oh yeah, you got to give Vivek his due diligence, because that's what Chris Haynes said. He's like, he did a great job as an owner. I'm like, I would go about as far as saying he did a good job by letting Monty McNair do his job. That says a lot about him. I'm not going to go further than that.
You can't. Well, he's done.
Yeah, seriously. And then you can be like, okay, he brought the Kings their first whatever. I mean,
He didn't bring him anything. He bought the team. He's run him into the ground, and he's finally not. Is that success?
well,
Maybe
what
this year, but not as a
what
whole.
I'm saying is there's still more to the story. The arc can definitely go on an upward trajectory. I mean,
Yeah,
it could be this
it
whole
will.
grand story of like a learning experience. Now, do I really think that? Like, I don't know. I don't know Vivek. I don't want to like act like I know him, but I don't know. He's not brimming with humility.
I saw. This is kind of funny. What I saw the Stockton Kings clinch like a playoff spot, and his daughter, Vivek's daughter, Anjali, is like the GM. She's like the associate GM or something. At Stockton. And so she posted on Twitter. She's like, made the playoffs in my first year. And I'm just like, what if Vivek just like fired McNair? Like, no, we already got a GM that can take our team to the playoffs.
Well, that was crazy because remember when they were like avoiding contract talks, like, and it was Sam Amick had just written a story. It was like last June, just written a story about like because they just hired Brown. He's like, they didn't match up McNair's contract with Brown's. It seems like there's a lot of pressure on McNair to make sure that this team gets to the whatchamacallit. And it's like in the same breath, it's like Stockton Kings' new assistant GM is Vivek's daughter. And it's just like, it's a cartoon idea. But we live in a clown world, especially with Vivek Ranadive as the owner. It's hard to deny the idea that know how they're setting up for something crazy. I mean, like, of course, it's probably not going to happen, but it's hard to avoid with Vivek. It's just like,
honestly.
man. Yeah. Yeah, that's well, good for her and good for the franchise. I don't know what the extent of her involvement is with them, but that's cool. The Stockton Kings are great. There's actually a lot of just interesting, beyond Keita and why am I blanking on our guy?
Keon? KE?
KE2. There's a lot of interesting length and young raw talent down there that's been compiled, and they're a good G League team. So all the props to the Stockton Kings. Mm-hmm. But man, I love anytime I get to talk about Vivek Ranadive. I love anytime he gets brought up, and I'm just like, oh man, the psychology of this guy.
It's a very intriguing person,
big time.
Everything about him. But talking about KE,
yeah,
the Sacramento Kings bench and Kessler Edwards, they've been playing well since the All-Star break. Not so much on Monday, but they've been really solid. And Kessler Edwards had that huge game against the Suns and really helped them push them over for the win on Saturday.
Big time. Yeah, you take 9 out of 10 games, the bench is playing great. You take that. Obviously, you kind of needed them a little bit more in the Bucks game, and it's not like they were terrible. Like I said, Lyles was making a huge impact in that game, both during the game and in the headlines afterwards. But it just was not the same element to the first 9 games, because it just seems like Malik Monk is just firing on all cylinders, shooting the three. He's over 4 assists in this stretch. Efficient scoring has really impacted the game at different points in a lot of the ways that you saw him do it earlier in the season. Just being able to be either play off of Sabonis or be out there as an extra facilitator when Sabonis isn't on the floor. Davion Mitchell, we've seen him a lot more comfortable with the offense in a few of his spot starts and coming off the bench. He's had some good moments. He definitely looks more comfortable. I think we already kind of mentioned Lyles. But the other 2 guys, Metu and Kessler Edwards, mainly Kessler Edwards, because I think it was good you brought him up. Man, he seems like he, at least right now, is in that rotation.
Yeah. And he definitely earned a spot after that Suns game. And you saw him get put in the rotation pretty quickly in that Bucks game. But he got a little trigger happy, in my opinion. I don't know. He missed a couple threes, and he kind of didn't really play much after that.
Yeah, I mean, he took like 3 shots, 2 threes, I think, if I'm not making that up. I felt like the threes kind of fell within the offense. I think one of them was late in the shot clock.
I want to say one was quick in the shot clock.
You know what? I think you might be right about that.
Yeah, it was like a quick shot, and it's like, oof, and he missed it. And I want to say he didn't come back in after that stint.
I think he played a pretty even distribution of minutes between the first and second half. Let me pull it up real quick. But
I know, I didn't look at this. Hey, he played 18 minutes, so he must have.
But yeah, Kessler Edwards, I mean, he see it. He just defensively makes a huge impact, and he's really good at what he does. And I mean, obviously, the Kings were looking like when everybody's like, man, the Kings could use that 3-and-D guy off the bench, the wing position. Like that's just, if they get a really good guy like that, it's huge. It's like Kessler Edwards might be a slightly cut rate version, but it's like his stock can only rise.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think you're right, because he didn't take any shots in the first half.
You serious? Wow.
Yeah, and it was 3 field goal attempts, 2 of them from 3.
Well, then maybe he got pulled after that then.
Could have him.
So one of them was super early. It was like a 1 pass, and he shot it. I'm like, oof.
Yeah.
It
was like kind of like a dribble handoff action.
Yeah, on like the wing.
He rimmed it.
Don't do that.
It's like Giannis is the guy that's on him, and so Giannis, of course, gets a great contest up.
I know. And Metu pulled that same stuff. He took like a step back shot on Giannis.
You know, if we can move on to Metu, because Metu gets me so close to being like, you know what, I believe in Chimezie Metu, and then he just does something where I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? What? Because they kind of used him to guard Giannis a little bit, and like he struggled at first, but he kind of like bore down there a little bit. I didn't really go into detail with the game recap on that. That fight was just such a focus, but like you could see, and I feel like there was the game where the Raptors came to town and really messed with the Kings. It might have been that game. I think they were using Metu in a certain kind of way that wasn't like, they were just using his length, and there's like more to him. I just feel like the versatility potential is there for Metu. I mean, he's still got a long way to go, obviously. I mean, he's not going to be shutting down Giannis. Obviously, nobody is. But he kind of, in terms of a guy that can give a guy like that a different look, I mean, it's an option, and there's a potential to grow there. But then it's just like, I don't know, he just takes so many shots that are just not great. And I feel like he's been having these attempts where it's like 1 or 2 a game since the All-Star break. And it almost makes me think like there's a green light for him to do it, where he'll kind of take a shot off the dribble, where he'll like go in, dribble in, go for a layup or a hook or something, turn around, do something of that nature. And a lot of times he misses. Sometimes he'll like sink it or like look kind of good doing it. But most of the times it just kind of feels like that wasn't the best shot. I mean, it's been an interesting thing with Metu all season.
If you guys listen to the podcast enough, I'm not the biggest Metu fan. Yeah, I'll give him his props. Like, he's performed well this year as a guy who probably shouldn't be the backup center, but is. But I don't know. I just can't wait until we have a different backup center. That's all I want to say. I'm happy that Lyles is kind of being moved to that 5.
Maybe.
That backup 5.
Well, we were talking a couple weeks ago about Vezenkov coming in and maybe replacing Lyles.
Yeah.
And maybe that just...
Well, maybe they'll just bring back Lyles and put him as a backup 5.
or toy with one of them as a small 5 type.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? The options are abounding. But it does kind of bring up another interesting story that I forgot to bring up last week because it's kind of a week and a half old at this point. But so, long story short, Richaun Holmes is filing a defamation lawsuit against the Sacramento Bee, or the owner/parent company of the Sacramento Bee, as well as the opinion writer Robin Epley, who penned a series of pieces detailing Holmes's ex-wives' allegations against Richaun Holmes that were ultimately discarded, I guess would be the term, by, I think it was a Los Angeles court in deciding custody for the child, which ultimately went to Richaun Holmes. So with all that, he's filing a defamation lawsuit, and it does bring up the whole idea that all the off-the-court matters were not, in fact, behind him, and that it may have played a bigger role than initially imagined. And, of course, it's at a different stage now than it was a year ago, obviously. But if you remember back in early January, Richaun Holmes had a spot start for Domantas Sabonis, got a double-double, played quite well. And after the game, Mike Brown made note of the fact that he's going through stuff off the floor. And it was the first time it had really been mentioned all season. During training camp, Richaun Holmes was asked about all the off-the-floor matters. He said it was behind him and that he's ready for a new season. That was always kind of dubious. I mean, like, that doesn't just go away. Of course, it was always going to affect him in some manner. But it didn't ever really seem like throughout the whole season that was too big of an option behind his struggles. It seemed like there were definitely factors such as, like, role and comfort coming off the bench, things like that. And you also have to factor in the fact that there were rumors that the Kings were trying to move him ahead of the season, and that they were obviously shopping him throughout this season. It just never really came up. But with this whole lawsuit of that came up a week and a half ago, it definitely calls that into question. And I don't really know if this is like opening up an opportunity for Richaun Holmes to be that backup 5 for the Kings, because I think given his contract, given the whole situation and his fit, I think the Kings would much rather move him. But even in that sense, I feel like this whole, kind of how everything has transpired, we ask about whether or not Richaun Holmes has value around the league, and it seemed like he did because guys were trying to get him to be a buyout candidate, which would have served the Kings no benefits. But it did show that people had interest in him. And I feel like this is just another compounding factor that lends hope to the idea that the Kings can move him this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, it can for sure. Holmes obviously hasn't been the same since these allegations came out and this whole court thing. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it. Like, maybe teams will take this into consideration, but at the same time, he's still he's unplayable still.
If I'm a GM or an owner or whatever, and I'm looking at this situation, and maybe I need a center, and again, I don't want to get into like contract value, all this stuff, but just kind of like hypothetically speaking, if I'm looking at that situation, there's all these factors. There's reason why he kind of had a lost season. And when you've been lost for the season, there ain't no way he's going to get back. I just don't feel like you're going to be able to get back in the hamster wheel with it going at full speed at this point and make such a big impact at this point in the season. I just think the season's kind of lost at that point for him. But you give him change of scenery, you give him something like that. I mean, like, that's what I mean. Like, don't you think owners see that and kind of like definitely go along that line of thinking?
There's probably more openness. Like, that's something to get, like, GMs will put that into consideration, right? But it's more than that. It's also a lost season on a guy who's getting paid starter money. Like, if he's a backup and he's making $5 million a year, I mean, it's a little different. It's like you bring this guy in, he should be starting for your team at his contract.
Yeah.
Rate. So I think that's where it gets kind of tricky.
That's why I was like, just leave out the contract aspect, because that is the big roadblock. It's like, ugh.
Yeah, it is a big roadblock. And it's like, all right, well, I'm bringing in the starting center who didn't play last year. And not only did he not play, he was unplayable. And yeah, like, okay, he had like I get it. It's like, okay, he has a lot of off-court issues that affected his play. He's played really well the last couple seasons before all this happened. Like, maybe someone would want to take a chance on him because he was super good. He was leading the league in field goal percentage and stuff like that. Hustle player, not like the best rebounder, but someone who could be a starter on a lot of teams in this league. So it's just like this last year and a half, it's just kind of setting him back. And it's like, okay, like, yeah, maybe he has all these off-court issues, but do we want to take a chance on this guy who has a couple more years left on his contract and is going to eat up our cap space? That's where it just gets messy. And like, I'm rooting for Holmes. We're all rooting for Holmes. It's hard not to love the guy and all he's done, even after this year, but it's just, for me, it's getting less and less likely.
Yeah, I think that's all fair. I mean, it all lends itself to, it's like, oh yeah, I mean, it ups the chances of his impact, but it does not change the fact that no matter what that hope is, I don't think a lot of people want it at that price.
Yeah, and I just don't think it'll change until he can show that he can play on the floor and not be a liability. And until that, regardless of what's going on, he's not going to get traded. Unless like it's like a real dump off package and then King like, give something away to take Holmes' contract. So that's really the only way I see Holmes being traded, whether for a dump off or he actually finally shows that he can still be an NBA level starter.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's just the money at that point. Because, I mean, in a way, he has kind of shown that he can still kind of play as a starter. If we're talking about that Laker game.
That Lakers game, yeah.
And it's all about how much value do you really put into, like, what a change of scenery would do for him? Like, does he all of a sudden become a center worth $11 million? That is kind of a tough bet to hedge. And I think that is, as we're both pointing to, I guess that is kind of the dam in the river there that gets interesting. We'll have to see. I mean, like, this team's primed for a playoff run. It's not like last season where it's like mid-March and we're already talking about what are the Kings going to do for a head coach?
Yeah, exactly.
So there's a lot of things before anything like that, like before free agency type stuff starts coming up. But I forgot to mention it last week. So I thought it was at least interesting bringing it up, especially with the fact that I wanted to bring up Metu. But yeah.
That backup five, the thorn in our side all year. It's the thorn in Sabonis' side.
He's like, what, I got to go back out there?
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. But now it is an interesting point. And hopefully Holmes can get moved and hopefully he can succeed somewhere else. Or even maybe he can succeed here in the future. Like, who knows? I mean, I don't know if you want to keep him as an $11 million backup, but the possibility in the sense that maybe these off-court issues are still lingering, like maybe next year they won't, and he can actually play as a efficient backup center.
He just develops into like a small forward. Starts shooting the three, creating his own shot.
He should. He's a good three-point shooter. He was like working on it, and he seemed like he was. I mean, I don't say he was great. I'm like, he's gonna be a marksman, but like, I think he can kind of transform into a guy who shoots two a game. I don't see why not.
Why not?
They just need to move him to the 4. Honestly, he's just too small to be a 5. He needs to develop his shot a little more. and just kind of play the stretch a little. I think that would do him wonders.
I mean, to be fair to Holmes, you shoot the
I
highest
know.
3-point percentage on the team at 75%.
Yeah, 3 for 4.
My goodness, it's crazy.
He's 75 for 100. Where did he go to college?
Bowling Green?
Yeah. Bowling Green, dude.
Bowling.
It's a bowling alley.
Better than John Morant going to Murray State.
Murray State.
Why didn't Keegan go there?
Yeah.
Kenyon Murray, what are you doing sending the kids to Iowa to turn the program around? Why don't they just go to their namesake state? But, yeah. I guess the last topic here is about Keegan Murray.
Oh, look at that.
You know, it's interesting coming out of the All-Star break. The Kings are 8-2, and everybody's playing pretty well for the most part. You know, I mean, like Sabonis doing what he does, gets Player of the Week honors, breaks the franchise record. You know, Fox has had so many 30-point games. I think in half of these 10 games, he's had 30 or more points. Kevin Huerter's playing the best basketball of the season. The bench is playing well, like we said, all this stuff. But Keegan Murray, he's kind of taking a bit of a dip. And maybe not for the whole 10 games, because the first 5 games after the break, he was pretty good. But in these last 5 games, for instance, he's had 2 scoreless games, something he hasn't done since he was a freshman at Iowa, coming off the bench. And there's a lot of talk about maybe it's a rookie wall or whatever the deal is. I guess another kind of interesting point here is in those first 5 games after the break, there was a lot of talk about, oh, look at him, his confidence is really blossoming. He's creating his own shots. He's getting some shots off the dribble. Like, it really seemed like his offensive game was expanding. And then in these last 5, he's a little more prone to disappear. Have you noticed that?
Well, yeah, when he puts up 0 points. It's hard not to notice.
You saw that too?
Dude, 0? The goose egg? Yeah, I mean, it's hard to be rough on him because he's a rookie. So it's like, I don't know. Maybe in 2 years, I'll make a little bigger deal about this. It is frustrating. It's kind of like when he was putting up the 0 rebound games as a power forward. It's like, dude, what's going on? It is late in the season for a rookie. You know, they're not used to these full 82-game seasons. So, I don't know. That's a rookie for you, in my opinion. He's been playing well up to this point. So, I wouldn't say it's like the biggest of deal. But, I mean, you don't want this trend to continue.
And he's had his ups and downs here and there. But it's like at this point, like you almost kind of want to be like, ooh, like maybe he's kind of reaching a certain limit as a rookie. But I think what's interesting too is that I feel like the intensity factor lately, whether it was playing the Knicks on national television or playing a pretty big game against the Suns on the road, which I think was one of the games he went scoreless in, or this Milwaukee Bucks game, you know, against the NBA's best team, I would almost be tempted to say that this could just be an adjustment period. I mean, we've seen him have adjustment periods, having to adjust to things both on the court and off the court. This would be yet another example of something on the court. And I don't know what the issue is, but I almost do think it is just an adjustment period because the intensity, like I said lately, just has got to be really different for Murray because Banchero ain't feeling that, you know? He's not in those intense battling for a playoff spot type things. So it's a very unique position for Murray. I mean, he's on a team that's jostling. It's on the verge of being the second ranked team in the conference. And so I almost would say that, and maybe it's just also because he's been so resilient and confident all season, but it's just like, I would almost call this an adjustment period.
Yeah, I think you can say that for sure. He's adjusting to a longer season. These games do mean a lot more for this rookie and his role on a team. You know, most rookies aren't in that spot. Most rookies aren't starting on the second seed in the West. I don't know. I trust in Murray. I mean, luckily he doesn't move too much. I mean, the most movement he does is on defense.
It just seems doubtful that it would be this bad because it's like, I mean, it can make all the difference if he's hitting most of his threes or if he's not. You know, like there's a huge difference.
That's very true. Maybe he's just in a slump.
And like in game to game, maybe not even just a slump. It's just like, oh, okay, whatever. Didn't hit those first. He went like 1 of 4. I think he hit the first field goal of the game against the Bucks, and then went 0 for his last 3. He's kind of based on his rookie season, which is not a ton of NBA experience, sure, but just looking at that alone, he's he's shown that he's prone to just have a kind of little period of adjustment and then kind of bounces back. And we end up talking about like, oh, this guy's so great. So
It's happened before.
I would almost be surprised if it didn't. I would be surprised if he just totally fell off for the rest of the season. It just doesn't seem believable.
Yeah. Well, I believe that was the last topic.
Yes.
So, but the Kings play the Bulls tomorrow. Bulls a little disappointing this year. We'll see if Trey Lyles gets suspended or not. I think it's a winnable game regardless. Get a nice little bounce back after that Bucks loss. And they play two in the next, they play 3 in the next 4 as well. They play the Nets on Thursday, and then they play someone on Saturday.
The Wizards.
The Wizards.
Domas' thumb extra that day.
Yeah, that's true. So, 3-game road trip, right?
It's a 4-game road trip. It actually gets tricky.
3
games, and then on Monday, which this counts because we probably won't do the podcast till after this back-to-back next week. Because on Monday, they go to Utah to play the Jazz. And then for that Tuesday, on a quick turnaround, they come back home to play the Celtics. Which is a real freaking shame because I'd want to see them play the Celtics with like a day off. It's like, no.
On Tuesday? They play the Celtics on Tuesday? Yeah. Jesus. So they play Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday? Yeah. It's like 5 games in like 7 days.
Yeah, they have 2 days. Yeah, it's a work week kind of thing. No.
Jeez, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's and all those are winnable games on the road, but again, they're on the road.
Yeah,
and there's a back
between 2 back-to-backs,
Brooklyn, and then Utah, and coming back home to play the freaking Celtics.
Yeah, good luck. I went to the Celtics game last year at home. It was not a game I recommend going to.
But you know what it was? That was Justin Holiday's best game as a Sacramento King.
I kind of remember that.
I think he went like 5 of 8 from 3 or something. He's like, oh, there you go.
Yeah, right. I remember Sabonis had a 30 and 20 game. That was like the one highlight after we lost by like 40. Yeah, it's cool. I saw that. I remember one time I saw Lillard drop 50 against the Kings in like 3 quarters. Yeah, I saw that happen. Maybe it was even 60 or something. I'm like, well, at least I was there. I guess.
That's crazy. It is kind of a crazy thing to do. Even if he's doing it against your team. It's like, maybe we should have drafted that guy.
No, Jimmer. The boy is the truth. Because Nelly said it. He's the real King James. Just for dead it. Since I'm on a singing role at this point.
God. Okay, let's sign off.
All right. Well, thank you all for tuning in. And until next time, have a good one.